Stuart,
Yes.
Stuart, can you talk about conscious effort even when we're not in class? Like, what does that look like?
The real determination of your inner growth are not these classes. The real determination of your inner growth, please try and sit still. The real determination of your inner growth is what you take away from them and how you live in the world, 24 hours a day. If you leave the class and you leave all the energy behind, you don't take any of it with you, you don't make a conscious effort to conserve the energy inside yourself, and you just get swept away in the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Uh, the world is telling you that you've got to stabilize yourself, and you got to be able to recognize something I say all the time. We live, life itself is the real temple. Life itself is sacred. And we get out of life, whatever we're open to receive from life. And if we go into life fighting and arguing and having to be right and wrong, and it destroys the whole semblance of balance inside us, and it really makes it impossible for us to truly grow spiritually. So what I'm saying basically is that the real determination, when people live in ashrams, for instance, the ashram is a completely success if the person that leaves the ashram has found God. They don't need to be in the ashram to find God. They can leave. They can recognize that all of life is sacred. All of life, is a manifestation of higher creative energy in the universe. The meditation sessions that we have only a singular purpose. That's to build your inner life and get you strong enough to be able to do what I'm talking about. To be able to, step out in the world, in the so-called objective material world, and be conscious enough and strong enough in yourself to recognize that it's also a teacher and it's also sacred. So the purpose of this meditation is not for me to accumulate disciples. The purpose is for each and every person that comes here to use this intense energy, this really powerful energy that goes on in these classes, to build a chakra system that enables them to cross the bridge so that in their everyday life, they bring with them the consciousness, the chakra system. They embrace life, they bow to life, they forgive the people in their life. All of these terminologies that we're supposed to learn when we're young kids that we never do, that are very important. And we use the meditation as a place to build a system that transforms not only the meditation, not only the church or the synagogue or the ashram or but all of life becomes sacred. All of life becomes a temple. And if you don't see life that way, it's only telling you you're not wrong or right or anything like that. You have work to do on yourself. So when you come to these classes, you try to really sit and focus and open and use the mind and the breath to grow. Develop a chakra system that enables you to step out into a sacred world. And that's what the classes are for, to build that kind of system. This meditation, people turn it into a religion, everybody's walking around in saris and lungis and orange and this, and that. It becomes a religion. It's not a religion, it's a craft. It is a craft. And it's an amazing craft that Rudy developed. and bequeath to all of us to use so that we can step into life and we can step into the very sacred nature of what life is. And life itself becomes the most remarkable teacher. It truly is. I wrote it in one of my tantric things that should be published soon. I don't have so many of them now. But, the Mahaguru is life. It's not me. It's not Swami this one and Yogi that one. It wasn't Muktananda sitting there telling everybody, worship the Guru. And if you worship the Guru, you will get your enlightenment. No. And Rudy whispering in my ear, no, the Guru is, at best, the Guru is the servant of God and the servant of the people that study with him. And in all humility, it etched itself into my consciousness, what he said, and it made me realize the true nature of what it is to be a teacher, to serve one's students, to serve God, to be a servant, and to be able to step into life and recognize the good, the bad, the indifferent, the everything is truly a way that we need to learn about ourselves and to grow inside so that we develop a chakra system that transforms life itself into something sacred.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I talk about this a lot, but then it has to be talked about. It takes years sometimes for these to penetrate, these kinds of, wisdom thoughts to penetrate, wisdom maxims to penetrate inside people. And that doesn't make any of us better. It makes us less. We're not more important because we meditate. We have to be more conscious about the suffering in people, the lack of balance, the lack of training in them, the neurosis, the anxiety that runs rampant inside them. I remember Rudy saying that there are no bad students. They're just teachers that haven't gone deep enough to connect with the students. Just bad teachers. He once said that to me. There are no bad students. They're just bad teachers. The teachers don't work deep enough inside to truly connect. And anytime a person leaves this meditation, I have to go deep inside myself and say, why didn't I touch something deep enough so that they could, find their path to God? Does anyone have a question? Anyone else have a question?
I have a question. You've said before that there's lots of different pathways to get to God. Do they all require the building of a chakra system?
Look, I don't know what they require. If you want to find out, go there. Find out what they require. I teach what I teach because it truly gave me a spiritual life. And I know that it works in a very profound way if people do it, but there are many paths. Thank God, I can't sit here with 100,000 people on a Zoom session. My God, imagine I'd probably run away. Thank God there are a lot of paths. So I don't know the answer to that. Go and find out. Find out what people teach. And if it works for you. I went to many teachers when I was younger. And until I met Rudy, none of it worked for me. Then I met Rudy, and what he taught me made so much sense in such a profound way. And not only did it make sense, it transformed my life. And it's why I do what I do today. So I can't answer that question. I don't know what they do. I mean, you can go to 10 places that teach Rudy's work, and they're all going to be different. They chant, they this, they have pujas, they all kinds of stuff they do, that had nothing to do with what Rudy taught. Does it work? I don't know. I don't go there. I found years ago an amazing form of meditation that worked. It opened me, it transformed, and not only transformed my life, it basically saved my life. And I do it for that reason. Doesn't work for everybody, but for those people that truly use it in a deep way, it will work. I mean, if you go talk about chakras and churches and this and that, I mean, you're a heathen. They'll throw you out on your ass, So I don't know what they do. They have to do something. Lots of people go to those places. But I do understand something profound. It wasn't an accident that I met Rudy. And his teachings literally saved my life. It transformed my life. It turned an erotic, anxiety-filled young man who had a lot of creative energy and that kind of stuff, but had no capacity to use it in any way in the world. It transformed me into what I do today. It gave me a spiritual life, and that's why I teach it. So I know it works if people really do it. I don't know what churches teach and ashrams teach, and Hindus, Buddhists, they all have different things of teaching. I do know I went to a very great Rinpoche in India, and he told me something that really was extraordinary. He said to me, he said when he was a young tulku living in Tibet, he said to me that, it would take hours for him to see his Rinpoche because he had so many questions that he wanted to ask about his spiritual life. And the monks in the lamasery where he lived also had tons of questions. And he looked at me, and this is a guy who was on the level of the Dalai Lama, the Karmapa, the Shamapa, an extraordinary being, and he looked at me and he said, today I can't find anyone to teach. And the guy was dying. He literally was dying. He was lying in bed when I first met him. And he looked like he had, a month to live. That's one of the problems. And meanwhile, there are 300 monks sitting in the lamasery courtyard there, with their prayer wheels and their yapa beads and the Om Mani Padme Hum. And here is this amazing being lying there, starving to death because he was like Ludio was like a cow that needed to be milked. You don't milk a cow, it's going to scream into the night. Well, this guy was a cow that needed to be milked. When we first met him, he was lying in bed, and the second time he was sitting on a teaching chair. The third time he was dressed in full teaching regalia, sitting on a throne chair. It was an amazing experience to see Rudy's little maxim about if you don't milk a cow, you got to milk a cow. He was a cow that had to be milked. Most people don't milk the cow. So what other people teach, and do they teach about chakras? I highly doubt it, but I don't know because I don't go to these places. I don't even know where to find Christian mysticism or, things like that. Yeah. I once went to a rabbi in Israel. We went to the Judean desert, to a city there, to see this rabbi who was supposed to be a master of the Kabbalah. And anyway, I don't want to get into that. That was really, well, if you want, I wrote a book called Light in Jerusalem. I don't know how many of you have ever read that book, but it's on Amazon. You can get it. But there are stories like that about this rabbi and this trip to the Judean desert to find a rabbi who was a master of Kabbalah. And I don't want to get any further into it here, but it was a very, very remarkable story. And a funny story, too. I mean, even in India, I gave it up. I gave up looking for teachers in India. I used to go on pilgrimages to ashrams in Rajasthan, in Bengal, and, to temples and holy places. And I would meet all these teachers, these Rinpoches and Swamis, and I would sit with them, I would open to them, but it never touched the depth of what Rudy taught me, ever. And that's me. There were, lots of people around these Swamis, Rinpoches. And it's why I do what I do today. Saved my life. Put me on a path to God. And that's all I wanted when I was a young man. Does anyone else have a question?
Stuart,
Yes?
you emphasize a lot keeping still during the class. What about does that mean resisting spontaneous movements or resisting feelings or thoughts, or even if they seem inspirational, or what is the practice in that regard?
The practice is to get your mind focused below the navel, to build the strength and the power inside yourself, so that when wisdom comes into you, because the mind is quiet, the heart is open, that wisdom will be absorbed into the chakra system and help you to grow spiritually. If you're all thinking and, it blocks the whole passageway for Shakti, for higher energy to come into you. So the point of all this is to get the training in how to quiet the mind, how to keep the heart open, how to ground yourself in the area inside where there's real strength. And if you do those things, you will receive wisdom that will come directly from the fountainhead of spirituality. It'll come right from the source of all spirit creativity. And it'll come into you, it'll nurture you inside, and it'll really, it's not something that you even have to think about. It becomes living experience, which is the whole point of all this, not to think about spiritual stuff. Please try and sit up and do the meditation while I talk. It's not to think about all this stuff and to analyze it and to get, I used to smoke, marijuana in my early 20s, and I would have all these experiences and I get swept away. By the time I came down from all of that, I was so drained of my energy, that the only thing I could do was just to go to sleep. So it's to build a system inside that allows you to take in the Shakti, the energy, the knowledge, the wisdom directly from the source of all creativity. And if you're noisy inside, your mind is yakking, and even if it's yakking about cosmic things and spiritual principles and all that stuff, it keeps that energy from really coming into you and allowing, the energy, the knowledge, the wisdom to become organic to your inner life and to become part of your everyday experience. Now it takes training to build a system inside that is capable of doing this. That's why I keep telling, bring your attention below the navel, build the chi inside, the power inside yourself. Open your heart. Gratitude will open your heart. You don't have to think about it. And then allow that energy to really flow down and develop the entire chakra system. Move into the third chakra below the navel, then through the sex to the base of the spine, so that every part of you is being nurtured and transformed into a person who thinks and daydreams and gets all involved in anger and upset at the world and this and that and all kinds of anxieties, into somebody who can live here as a child of God every day. And you have real knowledge. I mean, I have never, look, I've been giving these talks almost 50 years now. I have never plotted out a talk. I have never thought about it before I gave it. It's just the Shakti that flows because my system is trained to receive it. And then it becomes part of my communication with you all. So the meditation is about building that kind of an inner life. It's about developing a chakra system that gives you the strength to do what I'm talking about. Now, this didn't happen to me in the first 3 weeks I studied with Rudy. It took years to develop this kind of thing. I remember when I was in the airplane crash with Rudy, and he passed on. And one of my first thoughts after I realized he was gone, he said, Stuart, now you'll find out what the last 6 years were all about. Can you continue to do what he taught you? Can you evolve and use it to grow in yourself? Can you find your connection with God through the training that he gave you? And just sheer gratitude for those 6 years of having been trained by one of the greatest masters of the 20th century. And never assuming, he always told me that the moment you think that you're doing it, Stuart, your spiritual life is over. That moment that you think you're doing it, at best, you're a servant of God. At best. And that kind of humility and gratitude, it allows knowledge, real knowledge and wisdom to flow through. Not all this intellectual stuff that analyzes and figures out and creates conflict and opinion, but a real knowledge that is spontaneous to daily living, that enables you to embrace the world, see the sacred nature of the world, not be afraid of life. You're open inside, your mind is quiet, your heart is open. You have chi, you have balance, foundation inside you. Energies moving through the sexual area, and that energy that moves through the sexual area, it activates Kundalini. Does anyone else have a question you would like to? Okay, there'll be class on tomorrow, or it's Thursday. God bless you all. And as I sit here and truly tell you with all humility, I am so grateful that all of you are in my life, people from all over the world here, and I think it's amazing. And as I've said before, just as much as I'm here to teach you, you are here to teach me. And I'm really grateful for that. And thank you. And God bless you all. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.